Maybe we could do a quick test. Can folks on Zoom hear everything okay? If I can just get like a message in chat, a thumbs up or something. Hello, Zoom people. Hello, hello. Got a thumbs up in there? All right, it's fine. All right, good afternoon, everybody. If I could just have your attention, please. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're very excited to have this presentation. We have a very honored guest speaker with us here today, Max Rios, who's an alum of Dickinson College, class of 2021, software developer at Google, here to give us a great on the intersection of AI.
Ahora, okay.
Because I think, he has some things to talk about himself, so I'll pass it off to Max Rios.
Bueno, yo veré tantito.
Of course. Okay. I graduated in 21, but I figured I would set some just like guidelines, keynote, whatever. This talk is not associated with Google. All these opinions are my own. I kind of do this because I really enjoy education in the space. I happen to work in the education space already, so they kind of blend in together. As Luke said, this is more, I want to treat this more like a roundtable. So if you have any questions or you just want to speak up, you don't agree with something that I say, please speak up, raise your hand. I really want to move this conversation in a good direction. So your opinions matter. And most importantly, AI is complex. AI in education is a whole beast of its own, and let's just better understand this together. And that's the whole point of having this type of conversation. But I figured I'd go in a little bit of background myself. So this is my desk at work. I think that a lot of people can be discerned based on how their desk looks like. And this is mine. I keep lots of toys, knickknacks, things that I like looking at. Lots of note paper. People love diagramming stuff, so you gotta have lots of paper. I'm big into programming meetups, so I have a giant mouse pad. I think it's way too big, honestly, but I have it now and it works great. And yeah, there's no information that could be leaked in there. I've checked 100 times, so yes. But I'm going to give more details. So here is my little timeline. I did not start at Dickinson my freshman year. I actually transferred in 2019 from Montgomery College, which is a community college in Maryland, for the folks that don't know. I got my associates in computer science there. I transferred in to Dickinson, also in computer science. If you guys don't remember the exact time of start, COVID started in 2020. So my time on campus got cut short a little bit, but we changed up to remote, everything was super smooth. And then when I was at Dickinson, I kind of started when I was on campus, I did a little bit of tutoring. I used to really enjoy talking with students, talking about our coursework and everything. And it was so much fun to me that I ended up volunteering for this program called Microsoft Teals. And Microsoft Teals is basically a volunteer teaching program where if you have a degree, so love having the associate's degree, you can go teach high schoolers computer science. I think they also do middle schoolers too, but I haven't looked at the program in a little bit. But I taught AP Computer Science A in Detroit for about a year, all remote, and it was a lot of fun. Working with high schoolers was very challenging, honestly. But I did this through my last year, and then after I graduated as well. But after I graduated, I started working at this company called Gray Market Labs. It is not education. It's very DC-oriented defense contractor. Not something I stay with for super long, but I interned with them for some time. And after I left Gray Market Labs, I started working on the classroom where I am now. So I've been there for, I think I'm coming up on 4 years now. So I've been in the education space for a little bit, about 5 years. But who knows what's gonna happen next? I don't know. We're gonna be doing some, cool things in the future. So you guys see what's up. Add me on LinkedIn or something. But while I am on the classroom team, I actually started on this application called originality reports. And originality reports, sound very corporate. It's just a plagiarism detector. But it is essentially magic. I love telling people it's magic because it works really, really well. And there's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I have a little wizard here that's basically me at my desk trying to figure out everything, but I have no magic, unfortunately. But I figured I'd throw a little GIF on there to show what it actually looks like, because in reality it's just like a little button, and then everything just works behind the scenes. You get a cute little display like this one. But our plagiarism detector just searches Google search and whatnot. It doesn't do that AI stuff that is so common nowadays. But actually going into the AI stuff, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what LLMs are. What is LLM? What is AI? So this is going to be brief. If there's any questions about something, like I mentioned, sometimes I can, something might be a little bit too complicated and I don't notice it, so please raise your hand. Okay, so what are LLMs? Large language models, which is just the long word of saying it, are AI programs that predict what text comes next. They're essentially just a fancy Markov chain. They operate in 2 stages. You are doing a lot of training, and then you're basically inferring, which is what everyone is basically doing all the time. The training takes a huge corpus. A corpus is basically a repository of documents. You could think like Wikipedia or like a book or something. And that corpus, in this case, is all of written word. Anything you can find on the internet, maybe even some scanned in books, whatever. And it digests it down into basically a huge, huge, huge list of numbers. This is very, very broad explanation, but it gives you a little bit of idea without having to treat it like a black box, where you throw something in, you say something, and it spits something out. Some of the things that it could do recognition, predicting, classifying, summarizing, text generating, translating, lots of stuff with text. But as we've been seeing in the last year now, we are also dealing with images and video as well. So I set up a couple examples just to show some of the stuff that it does. Super basic math. You give it 2 + 2. It gives you back 4, maybe sometimes it gives you back 4. What year was Michael Jordan born? 1963. And then we have something that's more qualitative, something that you can't just have a set answer for. So we're moving into something that's a little bit harder to analyze, that quantitative to qualitative analysis. So we're going to look at a little bit an example of essay grading, something that a lot of people are familiar with. So we have some essay that a student wrote, and we have all these criteria. And teachers, they're always teaching, they're always grading with a rubric. So something to provide guide rails for how they're going to analyze your paper and see how you performed. So I just threw a couple examples on there, like grade level, accuracy, organization, grammar, analysis. But grading isn't just all just defined in a rubric. This is just a guideline. You need the experience to understand, what is how is a student performing overall? Can you take that into context when you're creating that essay? There's a lot of information that is missing in this picture. And when an LLM tries to work, it'll give you a lot of different information because it might not have that context. It might not have that experience with that student. So we might get a bunch of different outputs. We might have hey, I'm gonna grade at a level of 10, or the paper is not that accurate. Maybe that's not actually helpful feedback. We have organization that's maybe it's orderly, grammar 5 out of 10, so you have different forms of responses. You have numbers, you have text, short text, but your analysis might be really long. It might send you back, a few paragraphs. So these examples end up getting harder when you try to do more challenging tasks. And I have one left, basically just the image portion of it. You can give it an image, it'll translate it into something that it knows, and it'll try to analyze it for you. This is, of course, just doing the, trying to predict what it is. So we have a cat, we have a dog, but then we don't have something that's right, and it might look like something that it knows, but it might not always be right. And I mean, just like humans, we might think it's a rabbit or something. But it's important to know that sometimes it can be wrong, sometimes it can hallucinate, and sometimes it's really hard to know when it's hallucinating and when it's not. So basic examples, I've already gone into a little bit about like the growing popularity of it. So 3 areas: accessibility, the versatility of it, and the rapid improvement. I mean, I think I've had to change the slide like 4 times. Every time there's something new coming up. The accessibility, and by accessibility, I don't mean like your ability to like interact with this application, but your ability to get your hands on it. So recently, OpenAI and Google have made these AI models basically free for students, and not just free, but they give them like the pro plans. So you have tons of credit to be able to use on these models. Before, I remember I had like an image of the App Store when ChatGPT was like the #1 app in the App Store, and it was like a huge thing for a few weeks. And then it was just like always on there. So had to get rid of that one. And then the versatility of it, we used to just have text generation. Like not even that long ago, the math was awful. Like you do like a multiplication problem and it'll give you some random number. So there's lots of improvement just in text generation. But then we see the versatility of it from going to image generation, video generation. I played around with it a lot. You get some crazy stuff, but I think that there is so much potential, and people are really seeing the value in it, even if it's just to play around and make silly videos. But also the rapid improvement of it. Like BERT was just created in 2018. So in like 7 years now, we are seeing video generation that is not just like a bad like video of Will Smith eating like spaghetti or something. But we have videos that are becoming more challenging to discern from real human-made content. More growing popularity, just some popular apps like Notebook LM, AI-assisted search. I think the AI-assisted search is just like AI mode in Google. But the Notebook LM, is like this research buddy. And all these applications, at least Notebook LM came out like well over a year ago. There has been lots of utility for this thing called like grounding your models and adding context. But there's a lot of limitations with it. And quite frankly, like everyone should be aware of these limitations when they're using it. I just have one big example on there of overconfident responses and hallucinations. And that's because these models are made to give you an answer. It's not very common that they will fight back on you and be like, actually, you're wrong about this thing. It'll be like, hey, like, I gave you a wrong answer. You know what? You're right about that. So there is, it's becoming more challenging to, discern something that is correct or factually correct when you're given. And in this example, I have an image of Turnitin's like AI detection tool. It's reading basically a paper that is actually written by a person, but then it comes up as like, oh, there's AI edits in here. And the other example here is, it's very long, you can read through it, but I kind of like tricked it. I can't get a good view of it from here, but I tricked it into writing a paragraph with false information into here. I guess I didn't really trick it, I just prompted it to do it. But if you're able to read through it, there's misinformation. I love spreading misinformation on here. But some examples of how you can be misled. And but on the misleading part, the best people that are using these applications, or the best user for these applications, are people that are not easily misled. Someone that's an expert in their area. And when you look at like software development or writing in different forms, you know, like fiction, nonfiction, journalists, historians, the people that are able to discern what is a hallucination, when is it just being overconfident and giving me responses and a bunch of irrelevant information, what's quality writing. These folks are always people that have strong skills in these areas, the experts in that. And this really ties in with knowledge gaps. And I always love talking about small and large knowledge gaps in these areas. When you're trying to cross a large knowledge gap, you're really giving up a lot of the, you're giving a lot of leeway to these AI models to try to inform you about something or not inform you about something. A lot of these responses can come off as looking correct when they're really not correct, or they're not providing necessary context for you to understand that answer. So the small knowledge gaps are something that, you know, something that we could pick up and something that we could discern if it's a hallucination or not. So, you know, going back to these experts, experts maybe might treat something that's a complicated topic as a small knowledge gap. They're well informed about these things. So it's important to have the background in that area to discern, you know, what is correct, what's not correct. And if you went back to those like examples of dogs, cat, jackalope, whatever, you know, it might be easy for you to spot those things, but as these things become better, you know, it's harder to identify. But what does this mean for, you know, education? Like, what is the actual impact on education, and how will it change pedagogy and self-study and everything, and how will it affect, you know, students here at Dickinson? You know, I like to be optimistic, but, you know, there's lots and lots of challenges, and I see a lot of opportunities in our future. You know, we have translation, personalized learning, content creation, accessibility, 24/7 tutoring, peer editing, like grading assistance, the list goes on. But, you know, are we there yet? Can we actually do those things? Do we want them to do those things? I always have chats with other like Dickinson College students, and they're always asking me like, you know, how should I be actually doing this? Should I be doing this? Or like, should I be using AI in these ways? And every day, you know, or almost like all the time, I have friends that are teachers. At work, we talk with a lot of teachers as well. And teachers are worried, you know, they want to have a bigger voice in this conversation, but things move so quickly that it's hard to provide your contribution. And that's really like, you know, a big part of this whole talk, you know, motivating folks to speak up and learn a little bit more and improve their AI literacy. But, you know, everything is not opportunities. There's lots of challenges. These are some like older headlines, but, you know, basically plagiarism, like, I guess like plagiarism is the big thing, you know. It's convenient that I work a little bit more in plagiarism, but there's academic integrity, bias and fairness, over-reliance, fact-checking. We always see bias and fairness coming up. Like, I think whenever an issue comes up, it's always all across the media. And over-reliance is something that, you know, I talk with a lot of professors about, and trying to improve your critical thinking skills. And even I think just recently, the EU AI Act has labeled AI in education as very high risk. It is one of their top categories because AI has such a big impact on students and their use of it, and just that over-reliance. And what that over-reliance can do is it can wear down your critical thinking skills. So, you know, I see this all the time. You know, I was a student once. It's very easy to just offload work to these, you know, AI applications like Gemini or whatever. Get it to write an essay. It feels really good. Maybe you'll go back through it, edit it again. But when you're doing these things, you're really relying on crossing those large knowledge gaps, right? Like, have you written this exact same paper before? Probably not. Have you done the research to make sure that these things are like factual and valid? So how do we introduce these tools into a student's like workflow without impacting their critical thinking skills? And this isn't a question for, you know, just like professors or high school teachers, middle school teachers. I think this is a question for students as well. Like, how do you use these applications? How do you get motivated to do your own research, to learn a little bit more? And I think that like newer generations, they're getting their hands on it basically all the time. It's like, you know, smartphones for like, I guess like Gen Z, always having it available for you, Gen Alpha. It's really important that your voice is heard when you're doing these things. I mean, like, I only graduated 4 years ago. And at Google, I feel like my voice is heard a lot. I mean, I speak up a lot. But it's really important that your opinions are heard. My big focus is like data privacy. And data privacy can be super critical when you're working with like under 18 users. And in classroom, we use it, you know, that is the lifeblood of everything. So it can be really challenging when a system is different than what you're comfortable with. So, you know, it's important to be heard. And quite frankly, the tech field, it's pretty homogenous. So it's important that there's a lot of diversity getting their input into it. And it doesn't mean, you know, like students, professors go to Google and tell Google, this is how you should be doing it. I mean, there's pathways for that. But it might be, you know, just like talking with your friends about it, talking with your professors about it, seeing how it can work into the curriculum, having cross conversations, you know, through like, you know, I'm more tech oriented, so like hackathons or something like that, or student groups. But I'm going to talk about that topic a little bit more later. I also, since I talk with a lot of teachers, I had a really good example. I really wish I had the name of the person that that gave me this example, but I always thought it was great. It's like a reverse essay exercise to basically better understand these AI models and identify these like large knowledge gaps that we have. And lots of text on screen, but the main takeaway is basically creating that essay, but doing the research to identify what is wrong with this essay. Is the writing actually any good or not? And I think this is a way to like improve your critical thinking skills and just kind of like get a better perspective about things. But I still have a lot of open questions, like tons and tons of open questions about how this is going to be handled. And not a lot of this has changed much. I think I made parts of this list like over a year ago. And a lot of things aren't answered. Like, you know, who has access to these tools? Who are these tools providing tangible benefits? I think this question is being asked all the time, you know? Like, oh, I'm saving a bunch of time writing this essay, but are you finding anything? Are you, I guess that's actually the really big one. Are you learning anything? Is the essay any good? So how do we make these tools, you know, accessible to underprivileged institutions? These things obviously are very expensive. Nowadays, we are seeing them, you know, being shared for free, but, you know, at different costs. Excuse me. How concerned should we be about data privacy while using these tools? You know, very big question. This is not even a question specifically for AI, but just all of these services that you use for free. How do we differentiate between small and large knowledge gaps? That's always hard. It can be really personal since you are really, you really understand what you know. And it can be hard to identify what's a large knowledge gap when, you know, maybe you listen to your professor lecture a lot and they seem to have a really strong grasp on it. And it can feel like I have a strong grasp on it too. But then when it comes to application, you freeze up or you don't know how to apply it. And then what's the environmental impact? Ugh, long words are hard. And, you know, how do we keep these places accountable? Like, I mean, all of these data centers, you know, they use a ton of electricity, a ton of water. How do we check in to make sure that, you know, they're actually improving the use of these resources? You know, I feel like I see all these companies sending out like emails about like, hey, we're now 100% green, or we're now 80% green. Like, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for other companies and just the field in general? And it can be very hard to identify this. So the accountability is really, really important. Having your voice heard is just as important. And having your voice heard kind of ties into, you know, how we can empower students. And some of these are like just like terms, but like domain of one's own basically is, it's like a concept where students, faculty, and staff are provided like free domain names, resources. You can create a website, talk about it, blog. And I know when I was in the math and computer science department, a lot of folks worked on personal projects where they would build stuff out, and they just wanted to be heard for a little bit. But also blogging, like I kind of changed up. I occasionally blog on something that means a lot to me now. But I know the senior capstone, you're always going to be doing a lot of writing, and I think that this is something that carries over even when you're getting like a full-time job. You're always going to be writing, and it's important that you share your voice, and this is a great way to do it, even if it's among just like your peers. The cross-university discussions is something that I mentioned before, the hackathons, the student groups. And even though hackathons might not feel, or for folks that don't know what a hackathon is basically a programming competition that's locked in just for like a couple days essentially. And these are, well, it feels like you're just enjoying time with your friends, you're just building your projects, you're really spreading ideas among people, and the things that you use, even without saying anything, shows that like, hey, we should be doing it this way. Someone you might look up to might use AI a lot, and they might use it like reliably or unreliably, and that changes your perspective of things. And there's this like term called like EDU punk, but I think the this hacker mentality or wanting to learn things on your own, very DIY, is something that's like very common in I think computer science departments, at least in colleges and universities, where you want to keep learning. You have the motivation already. I mean, maybe you're coming to school because you love programming, or maybe you're coming to school because you love data, and you want to pursue that knowledge outside of the class as well. And I think personally, this is like my favorite way to learn, because you could really tie in your own interests that not necessarily brought up in your class. Like, I love playing video games, but I'm not gonna force my professor to be like, can you make this class oriented around like competitive Dota or something? So I won't do this to them, I promise. So how can I make my learning experience a little bit better? How can I learn a bit more? Maybe I want to make an application, a ChatGPT wrapper, something that's wrapped around this. Or maybe I want to just talk with people that use it. You could talk with me, it's the same way. When you're empowered to do stuff, then you can make a big change. And here is a little, is it working? Sweet. This is like the Gemini for education. It's gone through a lot of name changes. I actually cannot remember what the name of it is right now. But there's a bunch of applications here that are all AI based, and how we use these things are all or how we created these things were all steered by different folks in the classroom, including me. I started working on these applications like I always say 2 years ago, but I've been saying 2 years ago for like a year or more. So I don't know if it's 2 years ago anymore. But I've been working on these applications for a while, and this is just one of the repositories and tools that we have. But you can be heard. I think that it's just a matter of speaking out and being well informed and having data to prove what you're gonna to prove the or to be evidence to what you're saying, and that's just so important, and it requires a lot of dedication and work. And it's actually I didn't realize it was so long. Wow. We're gonna skip this though. But there's plenty of resources. I think that I really love education, honestly. So I've been reading a lot of books. These are some of the books that I recommend. I read this one a few years ago, Failure to Disrupt. Great book. These aren't all focused on just like AI, but just like the history of ed tech, essentially. I think that you get so much insight into the landscape of ed tech when you just go back to all the applications that were made in the past, and like understanding like, oh, like what's a MOOC, what are all these keywords? So I recommend The Teacher and the Machine. This is like an awesome, basically a history book. But if you want to learn how like students are engaging with their work, and even as a student, I feel like you can learn so much about the type of learner that you are. And the Disengaged Teen is an amazing resource. These aren't higher, or I guess like The Teacher and the Machine is more focused on higher ed, but there's so much tie-in in all levels of education. You know, classroom is oriented at high school, middle school, elementary school, but it's easy to translate, or it's not easy, but this knowledge is translatable when you talk with your professors and whatnot. But we have a bunch of time left. I'm going to speak through this a little bit faster, but I wanted to leave it open for questions. And you know, if anyone has any comments, I really want to open the floor there. I think this is just like, is it going to go black screen? You want to do a black screen? Okay. I'm going to leave this open just so if folks want to, take a picture of it. But I could start taking questions. I'm going to look in the Zoom chat too. I saw Luke, you posted the request for question in the chat. If you want to speak up in the meeting, you're welcome to as well. Just make sure to raise your hand and we'll call you out as well. But maybe I'll start with folks like in person. Okay. When you ask your question, can you say your name and maybe like your year?
I'm Spencer. I'm a senior now. My biggest question I was wondering with AI is, does it know like the probability of what it's saying and how accurate it is? Like, does it know like, this is like 20% correct, but I'm still going to give it to you? Does it have any idea how accurate the information is, or does it have no idea?
So actually early on, a lot of these model responses used to provide probability scores with their output. It used to be, it would, I guess, tie in with like this like response weight, this key term called weight. And I think we've quickly learned that like it wasn't very applicable. It wasn't necessarily right all the time. And the reason for that is that a lot of these responses that we're expecting are like very, like the term like, it's qualitative. You need someone to really look through it and verify and analyze whether this response is actually correct. And this can be really, really hard. So while there's a chance that it's like, oh, the score that it provides back is like the probability of these words all being together might be accurate to that response. The reality is that, all the words that it's guessing they're just random, It doesn't understand what it's actually giving back to you. So if it doesn't understand it, it can't really say that this accuracy is correct for this context. Go ahead.
My name is Mandy. I'm a sophomore. And my question is, do you think that AI is going to continue getting significantly better over time? Or do you think that it's going to start using itself for training as it continues publishing articles and those things are mildly incorrect, and then it's going to keep feeding that, so it'll level off or even get worse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will preface that I do not train models professionally. So, and it's essentially a guess on my part, or a hope that, hopefully these things do improve. I think that there's a lot of benefit to them. I think we have to deal with a lot of the flaws where a lot of the answers that we get back or the quality of the answers aren't necessarily good. And I think that a lot of the hopes that I have on this slide here can only be done if the quality is there. And when I say the quality is there, it's that the quality is acceptable for you. And that could be relative. If I just want to answer a quick question, the quality might be 98%. That might be amazing. But if I'm grading homework, it might be 60, 50. Is that just creating more work for us? So I think I'd hope it continues to improve. And I think we are seeing it improve quite a bit. But I'd recommend just continuing to do research on that. I can't speak from personal experience about what I'm actually seeing, besides the trends that we're seeing across all these different candidates. Go ahead.
I'm Fox. I'm a senior. I just want to know, can you talk more about what Google Classroom is in particular? Because I usually work with Google, but I've never heard of Google Classroom. So
that's a great point. Yes, I always forget. I actually never used Google Classroom when I was in school. So this was, when I started working here, this was a first for me. Google Classroom is essentially, it's like a pseudo LMS, if you guys are familiar with LMSs. It takes away, there's not a lot of, or there is like core functionality that like, Google, Blackboard, whatever provide. And Classroom basically simplifies all of that and provides the basics for a lot of these like high schools, middle schools, whatever. But Google Classroom originally just started as like a big like a repository for teachers to share documents. And we had a really big relationship with Google Drive because teachers wanted to upload PDFs and assignments and share with their students, or maybe just share with their other coworkers. But it grew into supporting, doing assignments, submitting assignments, and assigning assignments, creating assignments, submitting assignments, grade books, integrations with different LMSs, plagiarism detection. There's a huge list. It's on mobile, and now we see it in like a huge percentage of schools. I know like New York primarily uses Classroom in, I believe, like K through 12. So it's essentially like an LMS. So.
Can you explain what an LMS is?
Yeah. So LMS is a learning management system. Okay. It's essentially just like managing your documents and creating assignments and whatnot. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm Zach, I'm a senior, and going off of like what you said earlier about like Google Classroom and like how there's a lot of like Gemini features being built in, and like how there's a lot of communication between Google Drive. My question is like Google has so many like different services and features under like the Google ecosystem, and my question is like working at Google, how much of that, like, how much communication is there between different, different products and different, can you nuts?
You're gonna make me shed a tear. It's like the hardest part of the job. Yeah, I think that this is, but I'm gonna answer in a way so that it's applicable to probably like all companies and not just Google, because this is like probably a large company problem. Cross like team and cross organization relationships are very complicated. Everyone has their own priorities. Your friend wants to work on their homework, which is different than your homework, but you need help on your homework. So how do you convince your friend to help you with your homework? And this is the premise of anything in Google. Like we used to be a part of the like Google Apps workspace, which changed names to I think just workspace, which is Google Docs, Google Sheets. By the way, Google Sheets actually started as a Sheets? Forms. Oh, Forms. The names are hard for me. Actually started as a Classroom feature, and then eventually it was adopted by Workspace. And then Classroom moved away from Workspace, so all of our relationships basically got like cut ties. So it's basically all about shared interests. And if we could share interests together between all these different teams, then we can move forward on a project together. But that is a very hard part. So Google Classroom has a lot of like shared relationships with teams around Google. Like our plagiarism detector scours the whole internet. So what we're doing is we're searching up the internet. So we have a strong relationship with the search team. We also have, of course, we started with Drive, so we have a very strong relationship with the Drive team as well, in all sorts of capacity, but mostly in engineering. In the more like go-to-market or the marketing teams, we have a strong relationship with Chromebooks, because Chromebooks are sold alongside Classroom, even though Classroom's free. So there's these relationships can just be complicated, and this is translatable across like all of these large companies as well. So even small companies. So. I'll get back to you. All right. You have your question?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the data security thing, because we were talking about like LLMs a lot, and I'm just thinking that like, can you talk a little bit about the security or the data security, because I think like many users, when they use like LLMs or something, they might accidentally paste like some keys or something, like API keys or special like, I don't know, like very important kind of like passcodes or something from the companies. So I know that there's so many like technology these days about some quantum computer which can like hack into the system and
Yeah.
steal your data somehow, and that would be a huge risk. Like what is the way that big firms are doing right now to prevent that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's a lot of parts of that. I think that Google is very cautious, and I'm not going to speak for Google about how they manage their security. But from my personal experience, a lot of companies will be overcautious. So they might ban, you can't use outside AI models. You can't use ChatGPT, you can't use Gemini, you can't use Claude, but you can use our internal one. And that's because a lot of the data that you share out is being stored by these companies, being kept by them. It might be being used as training data. So you always want to be very careful. And it ties in with your security keys. If you go into Gemini or ChatGPT and start pasting a bunch of security keys in there, what are the chances that a month from now, 5 months from now, we're going to see your security key get generated when someone's like, generate me a security key. So it's, and I think that would have been a good article to include with this, because I did recently read something about that, about API keys or secrets being stored, being shared. But I think what we're seeing now is similar to what a lot of university professors are doing, where AI banned, you can't use it, or you at least can't use these specific ones. And as time went on, this is a couple of years back, but as time went on, basically the internal tool set expanded, and they all rely on the same concept of what's ours is ours and not shared with anyone else. So the idea that you shouldn't be using external resources isn't necessarily a new thing. Google doesn't want me going into Microsoft Teams and start talking about company secrets in there. In the same way, whoops, sorry if there's a thing on the mic. The same way, vice versa. So when you apply AI to this, it just becomes a lot more complicated. But some places have very strict terms and conditions. You can read through them. I think that the Google Classroom terms of conditions are a little. This is catch me on fire. I think they're a little bit easier to read. I've had to work with our privacy counsels, our legal team for so much time, disgusting amount of time, to make sure that we're doing things the proper way, the right way, that we're taking the right approach with things. And it can be a real challenge, especially when you set up really strict guardrails. And especially when you're, an international company working, especially in the EU, who has very strict regulations, when you're working with children's data. So yeah. Okay.
I was gonna ask, what does your day-to-day life look like at work? Do you interact with AI regularly, or is this just a topic you chose to talk about because it's very socially relevant currently?
So I started working on these AI applications a long time ago. I remember I picked them up because it was just kind of interesting. And I think that I always like to, even at Dickinson, I remember I just saw something what the heck's a blockchain, And I'll try to build something with it if I can. And it was the same way with these generative AI models. So I picked them up, and I noticed I think 3 other coworkers across all of Google Classroom were really interested in it as well. So we talked about it, we built some stuff out, and I remember I told some of my higher ups, I'm like, hey, if anything ever comes from this, you got to put me on the team so I can work on it, because I'm having a lot of fun with this. And I remember when ChatGPT, or when OpenAI released ChatGPT, names are hard, guys. When they released ChatGPT, it was all hands on deck, everyone needs to do something. And that's when the Tiger team was formed. And we started kind of like playing around with it a little bit more, spitballing ideas and whatnot. But I realize I'm losing track of your question. You might ask me one more time.
Well, it was like sort of two questions. I'm just curious on what like day-to-day life looks like at Google,
Yeah.
because that's really cool. But also I was wondering if you interact with AI like in day-to-day life, or is it just like a one-off?
That's right. So the actual building of it was something that was kind of like, I'm doing my primary work, which isn't AI related, and then I'm playing around with it on personal projects or like work personal projects. But as time went on, these things actually got way better, and they were able to help me fill in small knowledge gaps. So I could spend more time prioritizing, let's say, like the design of my application, and less time on coding up something I already know what I need to code up. So I think there's a lot of benefits. Like Google really wants their engineers to use AI. So do basically like all these big companies nowadays. And it can be really challenging to make sure you're doing things the right way. And especially like, even as an expert, I mentioned earlier that like, you could be an expert in this field, but you might be missing some type of information, you might miss it. And these are issues that come up like when you're vibe coding. I don't know if vibe coding is like still the term, but it can be a real challenge. And whether you're saving time doing these things is still an open debate. I think that's the, companies really want to hear that like you're saving time when you use AI. I mean, I want to save time when I use AI too. Like if it was free and I could save a bunch of time by doing this, that's amazing. I still love programming just because it's like a passion of mine. I will, like on my actual personal projects, I'll just program by myself because it's fun to run into bugs and deal with these issues. But when you're trying to, get something done really quickly and you want to get it done really, really well, I think there's a lot of benefit from using these things like every day. Yeah. Did anyone, I forgot, I want to check Zoom, because we took a lot of questions in person. Did anyone on the Zoom have any questions? And you can post in the chat, or you can like raise your hand too. I can unmute the audio. Right now on time. Okay. I do not see any hands, unless, I don't really use Zoom. Am I missing anything?
No, I'm not seeing any hands. They usually appear like they'll pop up with the hand icon. But...
Okay, sweet. Then I'm just gonna take more questions from here. Does anyone have any more questions about anything in this presentation? Also, there's like time after,
Yeah.
to-
So we will be meeting over in Biddle House afterwards because we only have the space until 1 p.m. Just like for some coffee and just to talk with Max a little bit, continue the conversation a little bit. But I mean, for any last questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, I think I need to do one more,
Yeah,
probably before we want to head off. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, since, I asked you about the data privacy thing, and you said that like some companies would prefer to have internal LLMs or something like that. So is RAG also a thing at Google? Do you have I think RAG stands for retrieval. Okay, I don't remember. Is this like?
I don't know either. I'm not, I think I'm always trying to learn stuff, but stuff is always changing so quickly. I'm just like kind of losing it. But if you can explain it, I probably know the concept. We just do different names, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's just like some sort of like LM which has access to all of your all the company's private data and everything. Because like there's so many people who are like not technical, and it's really hard for them to browse through everything to see to find a very specific detail for a very specific question or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh man, Google has this internal search engine called MoMA, based off of Museum of Modern Art. And this is non-AI. It is just a search. I guess technically we're using someone, but not generative AI. And it is just like a Google search for anything that you would need. If I want to look for a technical design document that I wrote, I can look it up in there. Or if I want to take vacation time or something, I could just find all the information that I need in there and quickly find the link. But with the introduction of generative AI, these tools are changing, you know, like, just like Google search is changing, MoMA is changing, so, you know, in similar ways. There's like internal chatbots that went agentic, so now you can look up all these different resources. Like if you're working on a task, you can provide a link to it, and it'll now be able to read that link. Or if I am trying to find a specific, like I remember a sentence in a design doc, but I can't remember which design doc I sent, I can tell it, be like, hey, like I remember this part of it, and it'll have access to all that information, and I'll be able to search it up. Google has their own concept of those things. Like these are like the type of tools that we use like every day. There's so many, honestly, like different things that people are building. There's this like concept at Google called like 20% projects, where you dedicate 20% of your time to working on something else that's not your primary job. And a lot of these projects are like the 20% ones, where people are really excited about some aspect of it. And lots of things come up. So I tend to kind of taste test a lot of these different areas, but we do have like similar concepts. It's just like kind of spread out and between a bunch of different applications. So, but we only have a couple minutes left here, so I wanted to wrap it up. Thank you everyone on Zoom for tuning in. We will be meeting momentarily. So.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up. I want to thank Max so much for coming in today and meeting with all of you. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We are gonna head over, if you're interested, we can head over to Biddle House just to kind of keep the conversation going. We couldn't have this space forever, so we'll have some coffee over there if you'd like. Also, if this is more so to continue the conversation on AI, but tomorrow morning, if you're interested in talking with Max, maybe more on like the Google side of thing, professional side of thing, career, the thing about your future, we do have a little sign-up sheet for you to meet with him tomorrow morning and just kind of talk a little bit with him on that. So I will put this up top on the back desk, and if anyone's interested, you can sign up.
All right, I'm gonna close out here.
Yeah, sure. If you want to hit stop recording, please.